Welcome back to chapter 75. So you get some more in-game explanation. So as I said, so the end of volume one is mostly this in-game. So the beginning of volume one, all drama. Near the end of volume one, more gameplay, and then volume two, you do some other interesting things that are I don't think it becomes paid chapters. But the fact that the author is willing to release all these chapters for free, I think it is quite kind of I think the chapter title is 食尸鬼. Sorry, chapter 75, 第75章, 食尸鬼, which translates to ghoul. So these people have turned to ghouls, kind of like Tokyo Ghoul. John Smith sat in the cockpit and took a deep breath of a cigarette. The smoke lingered in the cockpit of the mecha before being cleared by the air purification system. The cigarettes were not given to him by Sume, but his own reserves. It's even said that the other party tried to pass the cigarette to Sume himself. Based on the principles of role playing, Sume politely declined. It's very interesting because it differentiates that Sume is only role playing. John's narration is only half the story. The bluish light beams of Sue's eyebrows are intertwined with the white light at the other side. The shadows are stretched behind each other. After madness is chaos, and after chaos, it is civil war. The fraternal civil war is probably the most chaotic and desperate thing in the world, but at the moment they are fighting for the chance to survive. Because this is a very simple truth. Just as our motherland had abandoned us, enough materials for 500,000 people to use for 2 months, enough for 100,000 people for a year, enough for 10,000 people for 10 years, or enough for 1,000 people for a lifetime. This is some real. When I read this chapter, I instantly thought of one thing: Dark Forest theory and Liu Qiuhua's three body problem. I'm pretty sure it's inspired by that, right? You, Yeah, and there's another reference to this later. Everyone wants to be the last 1,000 people alive, but there's no doubt that those who have the most chance to survive are us Doomsday Knights. We have independent self-recycling equipment, and one person can match the powerful firepower of a whole company, or battalion probably. If we are respected by strength in the last days, we are undoubtedly the fighters at the top of the pyramid. But I don't want to do this. I want to build a relatively stable society, even if the motherland has abandoned us. But after all, this is a coastal area. The size of the team can still live very well. We can dismantle the reactors on those nuclear-powered warships as power sources. After all, they worked for 20 years without changing fuel. As for what happens after 20 years, it's already a long time anyway. Why think that far? Just that I didn't expect the most ferocious enemy, sure to be my closest comrade in arms, betrayal. I'm reminded of Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Um, and what is it? Spec Ops: The Line. Special thanks to extra credits for that. John Smith's voice became low, and Sume knew that the other part of had finally talked about the final scene, which is why John Smith fell into the field now. Translation's not working again. That happens from time to time. You just refresh the page. But yeah, some real interesting things. I think there's another movie as well, um, about Vietnam. I used to think that we can build an orderly new society that can lead our warriors to live in this apocalypse, but I didn't expect that more people are concerned about their own survival. So that's what I mean. They made John Smith a paragon. There are bad people and there are good people, but it's not very contradictory. Also, kind of praising Americans subtly as well. Um, I think Ip Man 3 had elements of that, and then Ip Man 4, 一文四. There's some no translation. Translation won't stay. But yeah, E1, 3, and 4 really explored some of that. They did such a good job with that series, by the way. Um, the Doomsday mech has indeed brought us extremely powerful personal combat power, right? Justice comes from the barrel of a gun or something. I think that was Chairman Mao. Or power comes from the barrel of a gun. We are united enough to manage and rule the remaining fighters, but the problem is that more and more people are discovering, why do they have to manage and restrain them? After all, they are just a pile of meat that are destined to die. The only thing in the world that can protect you from surviving the frozen final doom is the mecha on your body. However, even though the mecha is good, on the day when it'll eventually be damaged, even if the nuclear powered battery is used at a minimum, it can only maintain normal operation for a month. If you perform basic combat preparations, it will consume faster. We don't have more nuclear powered batteries. After all, we are lost local supplies. The number of parts for the Doomsday mech itself is also very limited. We just don't have enough spare parts. It's just that I didn't think of that at this time. Those frantic beasts wanted to kill us, who are also the Knights of the Doomsday, to collect the parts on our bodies. This reminded me of like a lot of the alien races where their most powerful strength is also why they're why they were just so desired to be killed, like dragons almost, right? Dragons are so powerful because of a heart, but so many people hunt dragons down because their hearts and blood are just so valuable. And the nuclear powered batteries that were originally used by more people if needed. So if there are fewer people, of course the remaining people can hold on for a longer time, right? The purpose of life is survival. The strongest fortress is always breached from within. I'm pretty sure that's a Chinese saying. Um, I don't think that's Sun Tzu. That's definitely interesting. I think maybe Cao Cao or something. When I was still looking forward to establishing a new order in this Far East city, our internal riots had already begun. In short, it was a cruel battle that I can hardly mention so far. Those 2 dozen beasts suddenly connected together, taking advantage of the rest of the night, and launched a sudden attack on us. My comrades fell by my side one by one. Many people don't even know where the enemy is. I just watched them greedily snatch the parts of the ripped mech for their own use, like watching a group of hungry wolves tear apart the corpse of a lamb with their fangs. I have seen the cruelest battlefield. I have experienced the most difficult battles, and I thought my will was strong enough. But watching them snatch the corpses of their opinions like ghouls to use as their own nutrition, at the time, the animality of it completely broke through the boundaries of human nature. Um, I felt that my beliefs had collapsed. I had almost madly escaped from the central killing field and closed the data connection with other people. I then staggered all the way here and then activated the sleep mode. It wasn't until a few decades later that you accidentally shot at me and activated my life-saving system. I was able to wake up, and at that moment, I thought I was still in that hell, and that's why I gasped like that. Sume fell into a silence. She couldn't imagine the situation at the time, but the scene that could make this warrior with many battles emotionally broke down must be desperate to the point of completely losing confidence in human nature. I can't understand, but I feel very sorry. Sume finally chose this answer and then looked at John Smith. The performance of the other party confirmed to Sume that he is a decent fighter, even a little classical to pedantic elegance. So Sume chose to believe him for the time being. So he briefly told him the reason why he came here and talked about the Doomsday Mechas cruising outside. There's ghouls who have survived to the present. John Smith fell into a temporary silence and then said, I know where the medical components that can treat your daughter are. We have such a quota in our supplies. It should be in the wartime warehouse now. I can give you the coordinates. With that said, a group of electronic coordinate signals were transported to Sume, receiver through electromagnetic waves. Sorry, I'm trying to contemplate how I want to go about this idea of trust. Really quickly for reference value. Trust in terms of like not the Monty Hall problem, but the golden. I think it was called the Golden Ball Show. And then what was the other one? There was also a famous computer problem of Hills and trusting in the message, sending messages. Oh, Dvorak and Subtle Disaster. Hopefully I can remember that. Actually, you know what? I'll just quickly write it down. Dvorak, Subtle Disaster, and then Trust. So, I'm going to reread this because I don't remember reading. So Sume chose to believe him for the time being. So she briefly told him the reason why she came here, talked about the Doomsday Mechas cruising outside. Those ghouls have survived to the present. John Smith fell into a temporary silence and then said, I know where the medical components that can treat your daughter are. We have such a quota in our supplies. It should be in the wartime warehouse now. I can give you the coordinates. With that said, a group of coordinates. Oh, yeah, I remember reading this. Electromagnetic waves. And the Transportation Committee immediately sorted out its final location and found that it was at the dock in Binghai City, where an integrated supply of 1,400 tons were docked. For, no, 140,000 tons were docked. Now it seems that it should be the ultimate base of those Doomsday Mechas, but there should be a large number of Doomsday Mechas to protect. Or according to John Smith, the total number of these Doomsday Mechas is not less than 20, and there are even certain Doom Knight members who ultimately choose to cooperate with them. I can't get close to them. Sume didn't reveal that he could save the experience of reading files and deflating countless times in front of those Doomsday Mechas. After all, for NPCs, being able to read files is most against their worldview. Even if the John Smith in front of them is not like a cold NPC at all, he can even be said to be a second human character that Sume has seen after entering the game. Although she only met two people, although she's only met two people. No, there's at least one way, John Smith said calmly, and I'll leave that cliffhanger on there. If you want to figure out how they do it, read it for yourself, okay? I'm just here to take you along for the ride. But yeah, next we're just gonna be skipping chapter 66, and I'm going to go to chapter 77 because what I pursue is concepts, not the plot of the story. I love the plot of the story, by the way. Um, so I talked about trust earlier. The body problem. And so there's a very interesting idea of the concept of trust. Like if you can, how much can you truly trust someone else? How much we put trust in our currency, fiat currency, reserve currency, the global banking system. Economics is run based on trust, right? Um, but the two ones that really explore this beautifully in concept, kind of dark, and I think I'm losing my voice, is a webtoon manhwa. I don't know how it's pronounced because I don't know Korean. Called Subtle Disaster. It's on webtoons.com. Subtle Disaster is really awesome. I think I did a recommendation of that earlier. And then there's a Russian movie with the same sort of concept called Durak. Um, Durak, I think because it's in film form, is just as sad. Subtle Disaster, there's some very sad scenes as well. Both look tragic. One is a Russian film. I never seen Durak, but it looks amazing. I think 2018. And then Subtle Disaster. That one is a pretty good masterpiece. Um, for those of the more shonen, I think type or seinen type, it would probably be Duty After School. That explores similar concepts, but not to the level that Subtle Disaster is. Subtle Disaster is a much more mature story. Um, but yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think a lot of drama is based on trust, lack of it, or the questioning of trust. Because once you start to question that, right? Even in the military, you follow orders. That's the expectation given of you, and that's and so certain trust. With that trust in your orders or in the hierarchy, will you like be do the things that you are told to do? And so that's that. We'll go to 77 just because I really like you'll really like the title. And it's very 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 well written. So that's chapter 75. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll be moving on to chapter 77.